Fast Lawyer VR Reviews. For sexy VR reviews, hit the subscribe button. Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we are going to review The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, Chapter 2, Retribution VR. Yes, that's quite a mouthful. This is a full review. I spent over 29 hours in the game. Unlike a lot of content creators out there, I actually beat the game. Yes, I'm part of the 2% Steam achievers out there. I bought this game, I tested it out on the Meta Quest 2 using link cable, and I can do a very quick review. If you enjoyed the first Saints and Sinners, you'll probably like this one because it feels almost like just a DLC expansion for the first game that reuses a lot of the same assets. So that can be either good or bad, just depending on what your expectations were for this game. And overall, I do recommend this game. I did enjoy my time playing this game. However, I did have a very rough start to this game, experiencing several game-breaking bugs at the start, and I also experienced some major bugs towards the end, although those bugs weren't as bad and didn't sour my experience overall. And before I continue, I should mention that I did play this game on the default normal difficulty, and I did find it quite challenging, and I had to restart several missions due to failures that some of them were my fault, but also some of the bugs I encountered made the gameplay more difficult than it was intended to be. Before I continue, I do want to mention there was a big update to the game during the middle of my gameplay that may have fixed the early bugs I faced early in the game. However, I did face some major bugs towards the end of the game that were post-patch, and that major bug is the invisible zombies you may have heard of. Once you head to the tower, you may kill some tower guards that'll respawn as zombies that'll be totally invisible. This obviously makes killing them quite the challenge, especially if you're not geared correctly. It is disappointing that this wasn't fixed in the first major update to the game. Hopefully it'll be fixed in the next patch, fingers crossed. There were multiple bugs I faced early in the game, but that was all pre-patch. I'll list them here very quickly. Items not spawning correctly. So for example, once you kill some enemies, certain items are supposed to spawn in order to progress the quest. And if it doesn't spawn, you're pretty much just stuck there, unable to progress. Or certain objects disappear as well. There'll be zombies that are just stuck in place. Some of the melee swings that you do will just go through the zombies without actually doing any damage. Performance for me was not an issue. I was able to play this game on my RTX 3080 on mostly ultra graphic settings. I think I only had the draw distance set to high, and I had super sampling set to 120%. There were some frame rate drops here and there, but for the most part it did play at a steady 90 frames per second. Although I did notice some stutters here and there, especially when loading up on a new scene, but for the most part it did not affect gameplay. Game is running on the Unreal Engine, and there's a lot of controversy on whether this new chapter, Retribution, looks better or worse than the first chapter. To me, it looks about the same, but some people do claim this is a downgrade. I don't see that. I think it looks, if anything, a little bit better. And I think what it is that there's some scenes in this game that look really bad. They look questified, but only some scenes. Most of the game looks pretty good, especially in the daytime, and especially if you bump up the resolution scale. But there's definitely some parts of some scenes that have some low resolution textures that do make the game at least look uneven in certain spots, which makes it look bad. The sound mix overall is very good in this game. I enjoyed the musical soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack for the most part corresponded with the action on scene, although that wasn't always the case, but for the most part it did crescendo in just the right action spots. The voice actors did a decent job overall, in my opinion, especially Garrick and Mama, which we just didn't get enough screen time for Mama, which I think was a big miss in this experience. The spatial audio was very good. You can generally tell where dangers were coming from. All the weapons had different sounds, although I do think overall they could have used a bit more punchiness, especially with some of the more powerful weapons like the chainsaw just didn't sound menacing enough. I did have the game pick up my microphone audio because that can alert for nearby zombies or enemies, but I found this mechanic really didn't work. Either that or I am as quiet as a ninja because I don't think I ever alerted nearby enemies. You do have full locomotion and smooth and snap turning available. You can choose the speed of the turn or the degree of the turn. You can play standing or seated. You can choose left or right dominant hand, and there are several comfort options. There is button crouch available along with graphical, sound, and gameplay settings, just about anything that you can think of. The VR interactions here are excellent, whether it's opening doors, whether it's weapon handling, whether it's reloading. I do have some complaints though. The biggest one is that overall just your normal walking speed is too slow. You are able to run, but your stamina meter runs pretty quickly and you can make it go down over time, so you don't want to be running all over the place. And some of the maps are pretty big, so it just makes the slow normal walking speed feel even that much slower. While the holster system works fine most of the time, I did end up either picking up an item from the ground instead of getting my holstered item, or vice versa several times. The climbing system in this game I think is a lot better than the first chapter. It works well. It's used on almost all the maps. However, I was hoping that it would have more depth to it. I was hoping there would be either a jump or a swing mechanic added to the climbing to make it a little bit more challenging. The only real challenge here is just seeing either the mantle spots or the spots that you can climb up to, and just making sure that you have enough stamina when you climb, or being able to see when it's dark. That's pretty much the only challenge to the climbing in this game. The core gameplay loop though is where this game shines, and if you like the first Saints and Sinners, then you are bound to like this game as long as you can look past some of the bugs, because the gameplay loop here is a lot more fun than the first chapter. Some of the new weapons introduced are a whole lot of fun, including the chainsaw, the grenade launcher, and my personal favorite, the Louisiana Kiss. I just want to know one thing, man. Where's my flamethrower, bruh? But in all seriousness, the gameplay here is just tailored perfectly, especially on normal difficulty, sans all the bugs. Without the bugs, the gameplay loop here is excellent. You really have to think before leaving your home base how you're gonna equip. What do I need? How many bandages? What kind of weapons do I want? What kind of loot do I need to be looking for? Night missions here are a must for a lot of the missions. So there's this constant struggle that although you want to be well prepared, you also want to go in as light as possible to get as much loot as possible so you can craft and upgrade your stations. And when you go out on these missions, especially at night, you don't know where you're going. As you progress, it just gets tougher and tougher. Time is not on your side. Your supplies are dwindling down and the danger is greater than ever, as you'll see at the end of this video. Now, I have mixed feelings about the checkpoint system in this game. You basically have no checkpoints if you leave. If you die, you start usually right at the beginning, although sometimes you will start at a slightly different place. In any event, you will have to run back towards your backpack and pick it up, otherwise you'll lose your item. So death is very punishing in this game. I liked it overall, but sometimes it did seem unfair. There was one time where I did actually beat Garrick, but later on, after some looting, I accidentally got close to this sticky grenade that was up higher than I was able to see it, and it exploded and I died, and I had to restart the whole encounter, which was pretty long. The boss fights overall I thought were exciting, although a bit on the formulaic side. Using the different weapons and the whole combat gameplay loop did feel good. However, the enemy AI is pretty bad in this game. Needless to say, the zombies are brain dead, literally brain dead in this game. The real danger here is that you're just gonna get swarmed and you're gonna run out of stamina, or they just have too much armor and you're not able to take them down fast enough, or your weapons break, or you run out of ammo. Unfortunately, human enemies are almost just as dumb. They do move faster, and obviously they have weapons as well, so that does make them more of a challenge. stealth is probably a little overpowered in this game. If you use stealth to get around, you're going to be able to easily pick off enemies one at a time, although obviously it does slow down the game pace. Lastly, I do want to touch upon the story of this game. Now, I did like the story between you and Garrick, and even between you and Mama, although like I said, they didn't give enough game time to Mama, so the story there is not really fleshed out all that well. But the rest of the mini stories involved in this game just were a little bit on the comical side. So overall, I think the narrative here just wasn't as strong as the first game. So overall, like I said, I did enjoy playing this game, and the easy review to do this game is just to say, if you enjoyed the first Saints and Sinners, you're gonna enjoy this one, because at the end of the day, it is just more of the same with just a few new toys to play with. And I would say also a slightly improved gameplay formula. I do wish they had used totally new assets, a new location outside of New Orleans, maybe Texas, maybe Los Angeles, just anywhere else. I do wish that they had introduced new zombie types as well, more exciting platforming as well. But at the end of the day, even though this is more like a DLC expansion of the first game, it's still really good and one of the better VR experiences, although I don't think it's any longer one of the best VR experiences out there. Unfortunately, I would give this game a solid 7 out of 10. It's definitely a must buy for those looking for more of the same, although you might want to wait for a sale and wait for a patch that fixes all the issues I came across. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. This has been my full review for The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution PC VR. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.